So, for the youngest ones, the old ones have to introduce themselves. For the younger ones, you introduce yourself. Us older ones can remember everybody that they haven't seen since last year. I got other family reunions and some of them wear name tags.
Yeah.
Far out. Where's
He's the oldest.
He's the oldest, that's true. Okay, after that, say something you want us to remember. And if it takes a half hour, we're all on diets. We can eat a half hour later. I'm Brooke. This is my father, Ellen. What do you want to be remembered by?
I could spend all of my time on the old farm, producing apples, pickles, cherries, plums, sold the pups.
Did you ever get a paycheck from any place but a farm?
Probably not.
I don't think so.
Okay, I'm Rebecca. Used to be away, then I was a high school, but now I'm a director. And I think one of the things that I think about is the family reunion we have had ever since Mother died, except for 1 year. And it's just grown and grown and grown. We used to have it in our own homes. And everybody that was around at that time would come to the home and stay overnight. It usually was a 2-day affair. And then next year we would go to someplace else. And 1 year there wasn't anybody volunteering to have it. And I said, Dale, should I have it? This is right after Melvin and I had gotten married. He said, yeah, you have it. Emily has had it enough. Now I have had it prior to that when I was a Hebrew, but we continued having it except for just 1 year.
How many years did we have it, or we have a sheet with that on?
Yeah.
What'd you say?
How many years was it on the farm first?
Oh, I don't know. Many times I know. Yep.
If anybody can answer that today,
We
go
have
Shirley.
a sheet with all
Okay.
that.
Roger.
I'm Roger. I'm the oldest one here. I was a conscientious objector during World War II. I refused to go into the Army and was put into camp for 4 years without pay. After that, I went to China and lived in China for 2.5 years. I went to Cornell University and got a PhD and was on the faculty there for 40 years. And introduced new varieties of apples. And the Japanese thought they were so great, they invited Mary and me to go to Japan, which we did, and got a samurai warriors company.
But you're a conscientious objector.
Objected to fighting the war.
Right.
Yeah. Refused to fight.
Right. Yep.
I'm Ralph, the youngest of the clan, and I took off part of the military service, and ended up in India with the American Friends Service Committee. Only there 3 months, and they moved me to Africa, where I spent 15 months, and then I was moved to Vienna, and very near the end of my tour, not getting paid at all, even for 2 years. Why I met my wife. I've been with her ever since.
Well, I'm Joe, and I've never been in this. I enjoyed this community a lot, living here, 4-H, raised the whole Center County. One of the things that I had the fondest memories about. As far as military service, my father died in 1941. I was home on the farm, and they thought I needed to produce food rather than refused to be a military man. I'm kind of been associated with the production of food. I finally went to Penn State, got a degree in agronomy, and became a county agriculturalist, which is one of those guys that stays around and, well, I don't know, it's supposed to be rough. This is the land grant college system we're talking about, Penn State. And the land grant college was started in Abraham Lincoln's administration. And the land grant was out of South Dakota somewhere. They gave her come into a big chunk of ground to sell and start Penn State. So the first thing was to start teaching a few students. They didn't know what to teach them, so they had to start in the 1880s having a research station to figure out what to teach. And that research station started them off the gases, and Roger worked for the research station. Then the problem was that there weren't getting this information out on the farm. So I'm the guy that worked out on the farm as the agricultural extension service of the land grant college. And each of the 3,000 counties in the United States got a guy who went there and be the educator for the people in the county. So I was in the extension part, which started 100 years ago last year. I used to farm this place. I can remember right off the corner of that building that we had wheat in this building. Tying up wheat, going to shock it up and let it dry. And we had the old mule home, so the mule's name was Pete. But everybody had a mule. His name was Pete. And Pete decided he didn't want to pull it. So Pete just is as stubborn as could be. Well, they got a little too stubborn. And when Morris, our oldest brother, who is not living now, went to put the bridle in him one morning and kicked his two front teeth out. Well, that wasn't too good for my dad, so he sold him to Muncie Reese over in the valley. And Muncie hooked him up to the wagon to haul the nose, and Pete got a stubborn streak. So Muncie just took a sheet of oats and set it on the ground and threw it in under old Pete, and he just pulled the wagon up. Wow. I had a retirement orchard, and I don't know, but as far as I'm concerned, one of the best things I ever did in my life was to plant a retirement orchard. I had 900 dwarf trees, about 600 peach trees. Finally, the deer and the stink bugs quickly out of business. So we sold the ground a couple years ago, and now we're
Staying with the first generation, we'll do Robbie next. And we're going to jump around a little bit because this is the way it happens.
Okay. Back years ago, the milk that we shipped, we put in 10-gallon cans and brought it out to the end of the lane where a truck would pick up these cans. He went to the Sickle farm and then came down here and
use the microphone and
get our milk and continue on the Congo Will and so on. But there was one hitch to this. He would leave the Sickle farm, come down here and wait because we didn't have the milk from yet. And we didn't have it in the can. And we had to put it in, after it got into the can, we had to put it in sort of a buggy type thing and hitch old Pete up to the buggy, and someone would get on the back of Pete, and that was me. And Pete knew to run, and he would run, and we'd make it to the milk truck. So that was something that I sort of remember, that's about it.
We're just gonna start, we'll do this circle, then we'll sort of move around. Everybody introduce yourself.
I'm Ruth Grubb Way, Robert's wife. We were married in 1948. We met at the Grange Fair about 8 years before that. And we had one date a year for, until we were married, I guess. One year until we were married. And we've been married for 65 years.
I'm Lana Salisbury, the third daughter of Bob and Ruth, and we live in Connecticut. And I want to take this opportunity to let everybody know that if you're coming to New England, please stop in and visit us, as not too many in this group have done, but a few have done. Thank you. And everybody's very welcome.
I'm Bob Salisbury, his husband. I'm very thankful. But and we have two children. Joel, who's just turned 25, an old quarter-century man now, and we have the daughter Emily, who is just going to turn 30, I think.
She's 30 now.
She's 30 now. She has two little girls now.
They live in Virginia.
They live in Virginia. I know. And they're married. And my son-in-law's name is John Davis. Just kidding. Going to prompt me. And we have two little girls, granddaughters, Eliana and Penelope, with another one on the way that's due in the first or second week in September. So we're done. We have a lot of fun with them.
I'm Mary Otis Way, and I married Roger. It's over here, and we just met. We were married in 1953. After I graduated from Cuba, and he got a PhD in Cornell. We have 4 children, all grown up, of course. Our youngest, Shirley, is here today. The other 3 boys are off in different parts of the country.
I'm Jane Burbank Way, and I am married to Paul. I'm Dad's youngest of 4. We live in Rochester. We have 3 children, and third one is coming momentarily from Tom, who's engaged to Becca. They're going to be married next June. And we have Kate, our middle child, and Rob and Jen, who live in Oswego. I think the Way reunion began in 1955. You're right. Yeah. And that was the year I was born. Which is fun. And I think I'm done.
Hi, I'm Annie. I am 12 years old, and I am Grandma Rebecca over there's great-granddaughter. I've been coming to the reunion since I can remember. I don't think I missed one, but you never know. But I love to ride horses. So anyone who wants a horse, sold.
Okay. I am Katie Way, daughter of Jane and Paul, granddaughter of Bob and Ruth. I live in Rochester, New York, and I am an occupational therapist. I'm happy to be here.
Hi, I'm Rachel. I am the daughter of Jim and Erica and granddaughter of Camilla and Ralph. And I like to dance.
I'm Jessica. I'm Dawn's daughter, and he's
Working. He's working.
He's working right now. And I'm Owen and Emily's granddaughter. I'm still a college student. I'm in my senior year, or I will be in August. And I just want to graduate, and I would really like to travel.
I'm Tom Way, grandson of Bob and Ruth, and James and Paul. I went to school here at Penn State, and Becca and I just got engaged a few months ago.
I live in Pennsylvania, and my parents are Sue and Todd, and I like video games, horses, and lots of people that I know. I'm Becca, and I'm Tom's fiance. See, I also live in Rochester with him, and
First reunion.
been to the reunion before, yeah, and
You're a pharmacist.
I'm a pharmacist, yeah. Pharmacist too.
One of you four can start.
I'm Bob Orr. I'm Carol Way's husband. And I have two children here. We have children here with us. We have three. Jason couldn't make it because he's working. And then we have Eric and Corey. And I was thinking about this family reunion. I came while dating Carol. And I'm a relative newcomer looking around. But I've been coming for 36 years. First timers. This reunion just
And it was
keeps going and
37
going.
years the other day since our first date.
Yeah, 37.
Wow.
Son, I have 3 children, Kelsey, Lauren, and Colby. Kelsey just had a baby, so she's at home with that baby. And it's my second grandchild. Lauren's in Philadelphia working, and Colby's on his way here now.
I'm Eric. I'm Harold Bob's grandson Joe. I'm still at Temple University. Hopefully graduating sometime.
Two.
Susan Hagen Booth, Todd's wife. I love Grandma Rebecca, that's how I'm connected. And we just celebrated our 14th wedding anniversary, so this is my 15th time coming. And of course, these are my 2 children, Annie and Abe.
I'm Todd Hagenboo, Grandma Rebecca. I'm first generation grandchild. My father would have been Larry Hagenboo, which would be Lynn and Alice's brother. He's since passed many years ago. I did just recently lose my mother, in case you had not heard. About a month and a half ago, she passed away. Well, a month and a week ago, really. But she suffered for a long time. So if anybody feels bad about the situation, please don't. We know she was a very faithful person, very believed in Christ, and she suffered for a very long time. So in the end, it was a good thing. We wanted her to get the transplant, but it just wasn't in the cards. I too am a Penn State grad of 1995. I have a 4 science degree from Penn State. I've been working in the vegetation management industry now for almost 19 years. I worked for a company for 16 years and recently went over to a branch of Aspen Tree Expert Company where I am a vegetation management specialist for a division of theirs. So, we live up the road. Gerald?
Stand over here. I'm Shirley Way, daughter of Roger and Mary Way.
And let's see, I went to Cornell University for horticulture and then UPenn for landscape architecture, and worked in that for about 10 years, and then decided that that was not my calling. So I did some social justice work and went to prison for a little while, and came out and wanted to advocate for social justice, and I do the Alternatives to Violence Project workshops inside prisons, and I coordinate that office for New York State.
I'm Camila Way, grew up in Austria and like to go back every year, but whenever I can. It's not every year, but quite often. We plan on going again in August, and we have 3 children, 7 grandchildren. Rachel, the only grandchild here, the youngest. So I think you all know me anyway, so it doesn't matter.
I'm Stanley. I'm the youngest of Elwood and Emily, so I grew up here on the farm. But I have been, shall I say, a tumbleweed for the last 30 years. Right now, my wife and I live in Houston, Texas. I'm an elementary principal at a private school. I have 2 children, Edwin, who is an Alba dissertation PhD student in Indiana, and a daughter who's going to be taking her nurse's RN exam on Monday morning. And they live in Elstra.
I'm Emily Hobbs Way. I was born west of Pittsburgh. I lived there all my life until I got married and came to Center County. We met through the Grange. I taught school. I graduated from Slippery Rock State Teachers College. And my mother went there, and it was a normal school. And now it's a university. But I grew up on a farm. I knew about farming, so I wasn't new to do farm work. But when I came to the Wayford farm, I learned about apples. One time I was visiting here before we were married, and Joe said to me, "What is your favorite apple?" Well, my dad raised Baldwin, so that was my favorite apple. But that was the wrong answer. So I got an education in apples ever since. And I lived on the farm from 1947 to 1991. We built diverse cold storage and changed the business from wholesale to retail. And we raised 4 boys, and we were very active in farm programs, and so that's enough. Oh, this is our latest addition to our family, Evan.
I'm Alice Hagenboo, formerly, and Helder now. I live in York County. I never completed college. I had some very rough years in the 70s, and I'm very glad I'm out of those years. They are behind me. I tend to reach out to a lot of people in similar situations, not formally so much, but they are out there. And I moved to Lancaster County to go to a Christian girls' home in the 70s, and I really never left the area. Lived in different areas in that southern Pennsylvania. And I am married to Don for 4.5 years. And my mother is Rebecca, and I have my brother Lynn here. My sister is with her son and his 2 daughters right now, so she's not here this year.
John, he's moving around on this before we skip it. You get to talk. He was over here. Now he's over here.
He's trying to convict it away. He's not going to have to do it.
That's okay.
Folks, hi, my name is John Helder. I'm husband of Alice Hagenbooth Helder, and I graduated from Eastern London County High School and went to Penn State and flunked out after 6 months. I ran a bicycle store. I worked at a steel foundry and worked at a glass shop. I met Alice and we got married. And then at the age of 36, I went to the Philadelphia College of Pharmacy and Science and became a pharmacist. So that's what I do now, and that's pretty much all I do. And Alice watches as I go run off the road.
You bike. You like to bike.
Oh, I am a camper. We like to do a lot of things outdoors. We like to bike ride. We like to kayak.
I'm Carol Way, Bullock, married to Bob, 3 boys, and I've already stole all that information. When we were married, Bob was in the Navy, and we were stationed in Bermuda. Lived there for a couple years, and lived in California for a few years, in San Diego. Moved back to Pennsylvania and ended up in Carlisle. That's where we live now. We've been there for how long? 25 years. So, I am a nurse. I went to Penn State. I work at Christian Medical Center in labor and delivery. I've been a labor and delivery nurse for 30 years, 28 years, something like that. So, and it's good. Good life. We have a dog. His name's Tucker.
I have 2 cats, one of which is named Tucker. I'm Suzanne Way. I live in Florida for almost 20 years. Taught in Cambridge, Massachusetts for 27 years. Was married to Richard Collette for 30 years. And he passed away a few years ago. I was blessed to meet my 8th husband once removed, Roger, the other Roger Way. And so I met Jill in Minnesota, and I'm meeting the other Roger Way in Paris in 10 days. And then spending some time with Ralph Milla and a couple of my cousins in Vienna. So life is good.
Paul Way. I'm son of Bob and Ruth Way. We met 2 of my kids, Kate and Tom, and my future daughter-in-law, Becca. My oldest son and his wife will be here soon. I am an engineer in Rochester, New York, and have been for about 35 or 36 years. I worked for a private engineering firm for about 18 years, and now I've worked for the city of Rochester for about 18 years. I think one of my sister Lana said that she was the youngest of 3 daughters. Well, I'm the tail end of that line. So growing up with 3 older sisters, the thing I like most about the reunion or about the fruit farm is there was a whole herd of boys here. So every time we came to the fruit farm, I knew I would have plenty of guys to horse around with and get in trouble with and skin our knees, and those are my memories of the fruit farm.
Lynn Way, Hagenbooth. And I'm son of Rebecca. I used to be a systems analyst at Corning. My 3 boys aren't here. My oldest graduated from Chicago Law School just last month.
My middle boy graduated faith a few years ago, but he's applying for med school right now. And my youngest, he is going to Erwin College, which, if you don't know, that's a Quaker college.
Yay.
I'll be graduating next year. Looking to be a school teacher.
I'm Donald Way. I'm Ellen and Emily Way's second son. I grew up on the farm, so I had an opportunity to milk cows and do a lot of other things when I was a little guy. We used to have to drive tractor out the orchard to help spray. And some of my early recollections was about 1957, driving to spray peach tree board. And the peach trees came across the top of the tractor. So being a smart, energizing guy that I was, I got down one time driving the tractor like this and drove it right into the peach tree. And Jessica Way is my daughter. Thank you.
I'm Colton Way. My parents are Andy and Cindy, and my grandparents are Ralph and Camilla. I'm currently up in Buffalo right now. I'm going to school at the University of Buffalo. In my senior year, I'm working towards getting my degree in computer engineering. That's about it.
All right, what we're going to do for lunch here, Megan has it set out.
Sharon.
Oh! Probably this one anyhow.
I'm Sharon, and as of October of this year, I will be married to this guy right here for 38 years. Like it's a surprise, right?
I'm glad she didn't give me a quiz.
Well, when I married Brooks, he worked for Agway. Well, he was going to school too, but and I had no idea that we were going to farm, but I said, hey, go for it. And we've never really regretted it since. So it's a great place to raise a family. And of course, we have 3 children. This is the oldest, Megan. And she has 3 of our grandchildren. And our daughter Sarah is in Boston, and she couldn't get off this weekend because we just came back from a week at the beach. So she is our 4th grandchild, which is son Nico. And her husband is a store manager in Acton, Massachusetts. And then we have Benjamin, who lives in Pittsburgh, and he's not here. He's not married, unfortunately. We're still trying. So we just want to welcome you to the farm and feel like our farm is your farm and our home is your home. So
We have
enjoy.
3 grandsons, and none of them even have a girlfriend.
All right. Later today, Megan and Jason built a brand new house on the farm. Moved in it about 3 weeks ago. If you know where, for the ones that my generation, Naaman Waite used to live up on the other farm, and so they go right across the street from that. We don't have any details of how we're going to do a tour out there, but we're going to do a tour. I'm a seat of the pants guy. I can make it happen, even if we didn't plan 5 minutes ahead. So
We went to housekeeping up there.
yeah, the house that burned down up there, Mom and Dad went to housekeeping. When our house burnt down here, I'll give you a little story about the farm. When you have a tragedy, give. But don't give your junk. Give the stuff that you want, because the people you're giving it to need good stuff. The first day we lived in this house at Naaman's, or Dad's house, but Naaman lived there this time, our entertainment was to throw shoes that didn't fit at rats that should have left. Okay? I'm glad the house burned down. I haven't had a lot of issues, and it's not bad that they went housekeeping there, and Mom was glad that she moved to this house, right?
It wasn't too good either.
That one was a little rougher too. But if you have somebody who has a tragedy, give the good stuff. Save the junk for yourself.
Yeah, we got all kinds of clothes, even corsets.
There he goes.
July 21st, 20th, 2013. We're having an annual reunion of the Way family here at the Way Fruit Farm. So, folks here mostly are Darlington Way and Ina Way, Alice Way's children. Mother died in 1955, and it was the next year we started having reunions, and we're now up to 55 reunions. There were 3 years that no reunions were held. So the kids were Morris, Roger, Elwood, Rebecca, Joseph, Robert, and Ralph, and their wives and children. Morris, our oldest one, had died 11 years ago. So I'd like to tell a few stories about things that happened, with me at least. One of the big things that happened to the farm here was that the mountain burned over. And this was back in the early 30s. As you know, the railroad track goes up Baldego Valley toward Tyrone. And back in those days, it was powered by coal, and the coal would shake the ashes out. And there were 3 years in the early 30s, 1930, 31, 32, along there. All 3 years were drought years, hardly any rain most of the summer. And so it was very susceptible for catching fire, and that's what happened when the train went to Port Matilda. And the thing that I remember about it was my father recruited me to walk with him over the top of the mountain through the boulder, over between the Ridges Orchard and on over to Port Matilda to look at the fire. I don't remember exactly what we did with the fire. Obviously, we couldn't do anything. And it caught on fire and burnt the whole mountain off. It was a tremendous experience for everyone involved. And they said there were 1,000 firefighters up at the Siegel Hollow when it was finally put out. But unfortunately, beyond that, it didn't cause much problems. I remember chestnut trees were starting to grow on the mountain, and when after the mountain, this fire went through, it burned all the chestnut trees, and from then on we didn't see any chestnut trees. When I was starting the school, my mother held me back. We didn't have kindergarten, of course, and I was almost 7 years old before I started school. And my mother had been a good teacher previously, and so she had taught me quite a little before I went to school. And Morris and I walked from our house up to Stormtown School. I can wiggle my ear. Can anybody else wiggle their ears? I can wiggle my ears. Well, I was sitting in school, and obviously I was wiggling my ears without even knowing it. But the teacher knew it, and it almost broke her up. Her name was Ruth Wheat, and so when she caught me doing this, she could hardly stand it.
Switching to another subject, my father told me to hook up 2 horses and a single plow, a mow plow, and plow this field that we're on right here now. It took me 8 days plowing all the time to get it plowed. I guess Brooks are going to do it in a few hours. So in the barn we had 4 horses, and Joe told a good story this morning about Pete, our mule. And the story that I had was very similar to the one he told this morning. We were making hay in the back field, right from out where Brooks and Sharon's house is now. We got the wagon loaded with hay and ready to bring it in, and of course that's when Pete stopped and wouldn't move anymore. I guess he saw on a hill just ahead we had to take the load up. So the story about this is we thought of starting a fire on him, as Joe says this morning in his story, but we decided against that because he would pull it up and the fire would get on the hay. What we did do was we used the pitchfork and jabbed it in Pete at least a half-inch deep. See if we could get him to go. I don't know, he may be still standing there now. We had several horses in the stable, and one of the jobs was to let the horses run around in the barnyard, and then we put them into the stable. Well, again, it builds on Joe's story this morning. Pete decided he wasn't going to go in the stable, so Morris got up behind him to drive him into the stable. Well, what did Pete do? He kicked Morris in the two teeth and knocked one tooth out. He had to get a false tooth for the rest of his days. Along about that same time, we were working in the barn. I remember we got a report that Lindbergh had just flew the airplane across. This was in May 1927. When Lindbergh flew the plane over to Paris, in the United States. It just happened to occur at the time we were there. Well, so Morris went off to college, and that left me, being the oldest one. I was the boss, and I was kind of a bossy boss. I had to give directions to all of my workers, the rest of the kids in the family, except for Ralph, who was too young. And so there I was, early in the morning, yelling as loud as I could to get one kid to do and one thing to another. And finally I thought, well, I was yelling too much. Our next door neighbor, Elsie, might hear what I was saying. So I calmed it down. So that's the end of my stories. Next.
Our farm, I'm sure I'm going to repeat a lot of the stuff, but our farm was maybe say 50% apples, peaches, and the other was we did have a dairy. It was always a small dairy, 10 to 15 cows, milking cows, but we got along and always had all the milk and meat that we needed at home. But as things went on, we had to change because we were selling our food mostly by trucking them to Pittsburgh and selling them on the commercial market. But when we finally started the retail market at home with much better solution and setup, and we started to advertise in papers, newspapers, and so pretty soon we didn't have to haul any apples to Pittsburgh. That when our sales had increased enough to sell them at home, and they really have continued to increase even up to the present time because of the way we have the certain stores set up now and how we operate. But we have always had both apples and peaches. The peach season doesn't last very long, and we have a large amount of, a good many different varieties, but the main variety is Alberta. And a lot of the peaches that start out early in the season, and we have one variety and keep on going for the other varieties until we get to the Albertas, which is the last one. And so I really don't have anything else more to say.
An incident that happened whenever we were kids. Well, we weren't kids. Father had died, and Elwood and Joe and I were kind of in operation running the farm. And okay. That better? Okay, we were running the farm. And the old barn was up on the second farm. We were converting it into a storage. And when you build a storage, you build a second wall around the storage area, and leaving a 15-inch distance between, and you fill that full of sawdust. And that was the insulation. Well, this particular one we were working with, and we dropped a bolt down in there before the sawdust was put in. And no one could reach it. And I kept looking at this thing, and so I thought, well, I can go in over here and come around and get that back out. Well, it all went well until I came around, and then I couldn't get turned around. I was stuck in there. But fortunately, Elwood and Joe came to my rescue and got me out, and here I am. I remember when we got electricity in the house. Up until then, we had sort of lived halfway in the dark. But with the electricity, it just seemed to be out of this world. But it was a great thing to have electricity in the house.
You know what year that was? You know what year?
What year was that?
1931.
1931. Electricity came to the house.
I'm going to elaborate a little bit on some of the other stories that were told. One was the one that Roger told about the fire, that it started over in Port Matilda. Well, my version of that is I was in the house, and then Mother had to go away, and I'll tell you why. And so I had to go over to Uncle Will's, which was right next door. And Betty was there, and she was in charge of me, and I was not to go and look at what was happening up on the mountain. Well, I went out on the front porch and I went out and I looked up about it because I wasn't supposed to. And here the fire was coming down over the mountain. And you know, if that thing would come right on down and burnt the barn and house, except for one thing. We had sheep that were in the orchard, and they had picked all of the grass off of that orchard, and because of that, it did not come on down and get into the barns in that house. Now, somebody had gone out and plowed, made a fur, a couple of furs wide, to try to keep it from coming down. But it was because of the sheep in the orchard that it didn't come down. And the reason Mother had to go away, Father somehow had gotten word to Mother that we are hungry. We need something to eat. So Mother went to Stormstown, and you know, they didn't have a lot of the kind of carry-out foods that they have now. But she got a bunch of cans of baked beans and took it to those men because she thought that's something really good. It was substantial, and it would be something that would be very nourishing too. And so she took care of the men. I looked up over the mountain and tried to see that fire coming down. Thank goodness it didn't come. Another thing that I think about is the big house that we lived in. That was down over the hill here. It had many, many rooms in it, and it at one time could have been for two different families, and I guess eventually it was because the older memory did move into the other house, the other part of the house when Mother was there. And another thing that we did as far as the family was concerned, you know, we were raised as Quakers, and the meeting house was down the road, a little over a mile, and we would go to Sunday school, or to meeting, almost every Sunday, go down there. Many times there were not hardly any families there but us, but we went regularly, and Father would be the one that would end the meeting, and we always sang songs. And Father was a very, very good singer. Now, some of my brothers, including Bob, are good singers, but Father was a good singer too. And I remember him singing, "Bringing in the Sheaves." He could just roll it out. Stanley said something about selling fruit. I didn't help too much as far as the picking and that type of thing, except when it came to cherries. And I did go and help pick cherries, and we had a lot of sour cherries, and we would try to sell them right there at the house or over up on the mountain. But we also had so many that we would take them over to Phillipsburg, and we would peddle them. We would go from one house to another, and it was the kids that had to do it. I was one of them. And Mother would drive the car, and we would go along, and we would sell them 15 cents a box or 2 for a quarter. And we would get in an area, there would, a lot of people would be buying. Then we'd get in an area that wouldn't hardly anybody buy. So Mother would say, "Get in the car," and we would move, she would move to some other area, and then we would sell our cherries, try to sell our cherries. We usually got rid of them, but that was over at Phillipsburg. When we were growing up, we didn't have TV like you have now. And Elwood liked the Detroit Tigers, the ball teams. And so Mother would listen to the radio. This would be while we were in school. She would listen to the radio, and she would write down what all the plays that were happening with this team. And then when we come home from school, she would fill Elwood in on what had happened because we couldn't watch television. So, you remember that? Detroit Tigers, that was his team.
Detroit Tigers, right? Detroit Tigers.
Changed to the Pirates.
What?
It changed to the Pirates.
Did they? Oh yeah, now he's a Pirate guy, yeah.
I have something.
It's a good group.
Okay.
Father would sit in his rocker. Father would sit in his rocker right next to the radio. And I wanted to listen to Amos and Andy. And so I would get up there, put my ear up against the speaker, turn it on so as I could hear it. And that worked until Father said, I want to hear what you're listening to. And that would end it right there. So these are just some of the things we had as parents from home. I think we probably were known to receive the greatest amount of guidance from our parents, from anyone in the valley. But we did, and the advice was always right. So I personally am very thankful for that.
We did have a bull almost all the time. For those who don't know what the bull was, he was the male of the cows. We had cows all of the time. And when Elwood was a senior in high school, he was going to go on some kind of a trip. For some reason, the car was parked up back of the barn, and it was quite a distance from the house to the barn. So the car was up there, and there was something in that car that my mother needed to help Elwood to get ready to go on this trip. So I went up to get this, whatever it was, in the car, and I started back down, and first thing I knew, I heard a brrr behind me. And here, the bull was out. The bull wasn't supposed to be out, but he was out, and he was coming right after me. And a dog got between me and the bull, and the dog just kept going back and forth like this, and finally, the dog got pulled off the bull off far enough so that the bull started after the dog instead of after me. I ran onto the house, but before I got there, somebody, and I think it was Joe, came along with the car, picked me up, took me down to the house, and I wasn't in the house very long. The bull had, the dog, because it was following the dog, the bull had eventually gone clear out to the end of the field, back of the house, and back again, and got to the house not too long after I got back into the house. I was scared. I didn't like the bulls ever after that.
I'm going to start with my mother, and she said, I'm a graft on the tree. So that's what I am. I'm a graft on the tree. What I'm going to talk about is history, and I've always liked history, and we have 2 volumes of Way history. A lot of this is in the history, and also Elwood wrote a book of Center County Quakers, and we did a lot of research back in the 17 and 1800s. So we knew a lot of the names of the people, some of the stories. But the first Ways came to this valley in 1792. Caleb and Jane Way. And they lived up in back of Stormstown, which is now Stormstown. And they had 14 children. Every child lived. And only 2 remained in the valley. Robert, the oldest, and John. I'm not sure what his line was, what line he was in the family, but Robert is the one that came down the road in 1829 and purchased this land. So there's been a way on this land ever since. And Robert Way had two families, but our family comes from the second marriage of, let's see, what was her name? Cleaver, Martha Cleaver. And their son was Robert A. Way, Robert Andrew Way. And when he was getting married, he married a girl from above Port Matilda, Unionville, Lucretia Maud Fisher. Her father had a very well-known orchard. He raised his own trees. He had a nursery for trees. And when they got married, they were given 1,000 trees from Robert Fisher, from William Fisher. They were all planted before the wedding, and that started the Way Fruit Farm. And Robert and Lucretia were married in 1872. And the first fruit house on the farm was built in 1998, and it's still standing, 1898. And it's 15 inches of sawdust in the walls, and they would open the doors when it got cold and let the cold air flow in and so on. And then Darlington Way, their son, Robert and Lucretia's son, bought more land up on the mountain. He bought a Sigel farm and he bought some land from the Matterns. And he increased the orchard very, very much. And up there, he took the barn, made it into a storage, and it also had 15 inches of sawdust in the walls. And then it came our turn, and we inherited those two fruit houses. And so in 1950s, Elwood built the first part of this. The business had been wholesale. They used to haul apples to Philadelphia and also Pittsburgh. Whenever we built this, we started a retail trade. We had a sales room. And it wasn't very long until we had all of our apples were sold at the farm. And we also, before that, there were lots of supermarkets, and we sold 5 and 3 pound bags to the supermarkets. One was Quaker Market up in Punxsutawney, and had nothing to do with Quakers, just because this is a Quaker state, I guess they took that name, and their name was Barletta. We always thought they were Italians, but they said they were Greeks. But they had some very nice stores, and we sold to them. And then we finally just did all of our sales right here. And so our thing to the farm was about 50 years ago. Our sales room was getting very small. The storage wouldn't hold all the apples, so it was time to refurbish, and you can see the results. The stairwell. And the stairwell continued from the first floor to the attic. You went up so many stairs and then you had a landing. You went up 3 more stairs, you had a landing, you turned around, you went up some more stairs, and then went up to the attic. But sometime along the way they made a bathroom. So at the first landing, they cut a hole in the wall and took some space off of the 5th bedroom and made it into a bathroom, and then you had to walk up 3 steps till you get to the bathrooms. Of course, down at the bottom was the door. One time my aunt was visiting and she said, well, I'm going to go up and sit on the throne.
Of course, I grew up on the farm. I was born a couple of months before Grandmother Way passed away. Some of my earliest memories, peaches were always sold starting on a specific day. It was going to be August 17th, and that was going to be the start of the peaches season. We would go up to the top of the mountain, and we'd spend all day there. Mom would make some kind of picnic, and I assume that I just sat under a peach tree all day while they had people buying peaches right out of the orchard for that. And I remember it lasted a couple of days. I don't know whether it lasted 2 weeks or what, but we were always there with that. One of the things that I did as a kid, I ended up in the market selling apples, and I really enjoyed that and had my technique for getting the apples out of the basket into the bag. And always, talking up the clients and customers with that. And this one customer came in, and I was helping her out and so forth on it, and she leans over and says, "Are you away?" And I said, "Sure, yeah, I'm away." She says, "Well, you're not hefty like those other ones." "Oh, thank you very much. That's just the way it is with that." But I enjoyed selling fruit here on the farm. Certainly another part of the life here on the farm was the cows. Of course, all the cows, I think at the height we had 20 cows that we milked just in case the apples froze and there was no income from the apples, then we had some kind of income with that. And we named the cows and took care of them, and I had a really good time. One of the chores of having cows in Pennsylvania is that you have to clean out the barnyard in March and put the manure on the field. And I remember standing in the original barn on the farm up to about here in cow manure and forking it into that, and somehow survived that experience on that. So those are some of my memories of being on the farm.
I didn't grow up here, but spent a lot of time in the summertime here. After school would let out, Mom and my father would drive us out here, and we would pick cherries until the reunion, and then we'd go back home. And I remember, I believe we got 5 cents a pound. Is that right, Ellen?
5 cents a quart.
5 cents a quart. 5 cents a quart. Which seemed a lot to us. And I remember
5 cents a pound. I don't think they sold. Anyway.
And on occasion, some of the workers that would come, they would let their buckets out overnight, hoping that it would rain. So it was by pound, I'm pretty sure, because we used to always check on the making sure people didn't have their water in. But and then after we would get done picking cherries, we would come into the storage area, and we would take the crates that are here and build forts. My oldest brother Larry, he would always hang around with David, and my the middle boy Dan, he would run around with Donald, and I'd run around with Brooks, and the three pairs were inseparable.
I don't really want to talk a lot because then I'll incriminate myself. But yes, Lynn and I would do a lot of things together. A couple of things we did is Mom and Dad the one year headed off to a fruit meeting, and Lynn was here a week or two before the big cherry crop come in. But my favorite pie is cherry. And Lynn had fallen at home and broke your arm, I think, wasn't it? Whoop. Somebody else just fell. Huh? You broke your foot. And while Lynn had a broken foot, Aunt Rebecca and him did a lot of baking. So Brooks is an entrepreneur. And so Lynn comes, and he couldn't do a lot of mobility, but he told me he had baked a couple cakes. So while Mom and Dad were gone, I convinced Lynn that we were going to make a cherry pie. And I don't know if Lynn remembers this or not, but we didn't pick the cherries. But we did eat the pie, pits and all. Every bite, you rolled your tongue until you got all the cherry pits out. You spit them out. And so my brother Dave protested, and we told him non-selectively that we didn't really care because he wasn't getting any of it anyhow. It was our pie. And then later in life, Lynn had bought a 56 Chevy. And one day, Brother Dave also thought that we were driving it too much. But that didn't work real well either, did it, Lynn? Mom and Dad weren't home again. A lot of our shenanigans happened when adults weren't around. And that's the reason I'm not going to tell many more stories, because of incriminating. A couple of things about the farm. Grandfather had a vision. Dad kept it going. It is not easy to keep a farm going for 5 generations, or 6, or 7. Times change. This last remodeling was probably the best thing we did at Wff. Because now people show up, not just for cherry season, but we're a stop for people with high incomes twice a week. They want their eggs, they want their milk, they want their baked goods, they want their cherries, they want their whatever.
It's from a farm.
And it's from a farmer. I'm not going to say I'm a grassroots farmer because, like our pies, they're par-baked. That means that they're partially baked somewhere else. The cherry pie you're going to eat tonight, I admit, is not our cherries. We can't get a hold of the range. We have no peats on this farm. This thing's charging down the road faster than we can hang on to. We appreciate all of you. But when you look at a family farm, don't think it's just this rosy bed of cherries. It takes hard work. Darlington, Ina, Mom, Dad. And I question why Megan and Jay didn't even want to do it. But without extension, we wouldn't be here. Without Penn State University, we would. Yeah, there might be another university, but I rely on their education so much. Even though I didn't get a horticulture degree, I'm thankful for the opportunity. It's the next generation's time. Any other younger kids want to tell stories about reunions? I have one for Jimmy I'm going to save for tonight.
A memory that I always have when I think of the farm, I spent my 2.5 year, second and a half year on the farm in the summer. And I loved it, and a lot of the memories are still there. But one of my strongest memories was standing kind of in the driveway. And Joe used some kind of a hatchet and cut the head off of a chicken. and running around like a headless chicken, it was. And that's still in my head, and I was only 2.5 years old at the time. So, one of my other, so, it was a bizarre picture, but I guess it happened a lot. Other memories of being on the farm when I was really young was especially Ralph, because he wasn't that much older than me. And I think I always really appreciated how good he was to me, like a big brother. And, you know, being good to me when I was a really little kid, didn't know how to do anything. And he always played with me and stuff. And I still remember being in the barn up in the hayloft, the smell of it, and that fresh hay smell and the light coming through the slats. It's a very warm memory. So that's maybe why, part of why we've been so close all these years.
Some of my memories are, I was telling Emily earlier, when it was the family reunion here. Now that would have been, like, we didn't have it like this. We had it at individual homes. So she hosted it in her brick home right over here. And I remember walking into the kitchen, and the entire kitchen was filled with homemade pies. They were
36.
36, she remembers, 36 homemade pies. I just remember thinking, I've never seen so many beautiful pies, and she made excellent pies, for those of you that weren't around yet. The whole table and all the counters were filled with pies. And I remember the apple crates, or these wooden crates. I was kind of the tag-along. I wasn't kind of, I was the tag-along. And kind of just crawled all over them with the boys as much as I could. We always tried to go higher than I did or whatever, but I have fond memories of that. And the farmhouse, I remember very vividly. I was really glad to see there's a floor plan of what the old farmhouse looked like. And I just remember the parlor and the kitchen, and going up the stairs, the hallway was enormous, not like most hallways are now, kind of almost like its own room. There were a few stairs up to the bathroom, and that was really unique to me. I guess maybe I've never seen too many houses like that. So, very interesting farmhouse.
My recollection of the house, that we were pretty little guys, and we knew that the attic was very scary, but one guy would get clean up at the top, the stairwell was open, and the other guy would get down at the first floor, and we could throw a ball up to the attic and back, as long as we were pretty good shots. Otherwise, they would bounce around, so we got in a lot of trouble throwing a ball from the first floor to the attic. And then we would go into the attic and play with the first generations, all their old college textbooks, musical instruments. There was somebody's science kit there that probably had mercury and some other good stuff, gunpowder. We would play with this stuff as kids. and as you recall, there was just a lot of junk up there. And unfortunately now, you know, all that junk up there today would be tremendous antiques. And that somebody in previous generation did caning, because up at the eave of the attic was a lot of old canes from caning furniture. So somebody in a previous generation had spent a lot of winters probably caning. And to set the story straight on the cherry business.
How many cents?
What?
How many cents?
Oh, we got 5 cents a quart to pick them, and they sold them for 25 cents a quart, and we thought we made money. And as kids, we would put the money on the books, and I remember being in 2nd or 3rd grade, and I had $5.25 on the books that we got to spend at the Grange Fair, and we would buy soda pop ice cream and these little balsa wood planes that we would play with in the backyard. But as far as the cherry business in Lynn, that my parents went away, and so we had these cherries to pick, and we all wanted cherry cobbler. And so we pitted all these cherries, put them in a big roaster, only forgot to put something in it, and it basically came out as stewed cherries. so we had this great big roaster full of something, but it wasn't cherry cobbler.
Cherry soup.
Yeah. And let's see a few other little things. Early in my life, we would milk cows, and we'd have to do the milking every other Sunday. And we would milk and have to put the milk in the milk cans. And my older brother David and I would fight on who was driving the truck out the lane to put the milk cans on the milk stand. And David got to drive out because he was older. He would turn the truck around, and then I got to drive back. And I was probably 9 or 10 years old. And I always had trouble with the bridge. But I was never going to give up my opportunity to drive the truck.
How many
rooms were there in that house, and were there rooms in the attic?
How many rooms were in the house and were there rooms in the attic?
Right. The part that we lived in upstairs, like you went up the landings and around, there were 4 bedrooms. And then the back part of the house, there was one great big room, and then it had a little hidden staircase that went down into the washroom in the back. And then there was a little room off to the side which had a door which led to the bathroom. But there was a big hot water heater that blocked it, so we could never go in there. So where the bathroom was, probably in a previous life, might have been a porch, an outside porch for the back part of the house. And Rebecca made, what?
The upstairs?
Yeah, the upstairs bathroom was on the same level as the bedrooms, only you had to go down these steps to that landing. There wasn't access on that same level. And and there was a hidden room that Rebecca made reference to in behind that bedroom. If you look at that picture of the house, it goes way back in the porch. And up in there was sort of a hidden room that you had to get into through the wood room, which is in the back, or you crawled through the attic and you could get into it. There was no access into that room from the second story into that room. It was sort of like a hidden room, or we often wondered what it was there for. And there was the wash. Yeah, well, that house was built in the 1840s, and yeah, so that could have very possibly been. And that there was an old washroom in the back, and there were stairs that went down into the basement, and grandfather, I guess, had done all that work, and there was a printing of the 7, maybe hands and feet in the concrete going in those steps down to the basement. But that's what the house went. What? Yeah, everybody had their own set. It had to be something, in the 30s or the late 30s or so, that whenever they poured it down. But that was all lost, whenever the house burned up. There was a wood room in there.
So did you say the attic had rooms or not?
No, the attic was basically unfinished. And like as kids, we just played, there was bushel baskets full of college textbooks, and there was old musical instruments, and there were some old paintings and stuff on the wall, and I know there was sort of like a colonial desk. We'd found like 1 or 1/2 cent postage stamps in, oh wow, what are you doing with these? See? threw them to the wind.
The desk was D.H. Way.
Oh, is that right? I mean, it was definitely some old rocking chairs and stuff, but the attic was not finished. And that there was, a lot of bees, and in the summertime it got hot and stuff. And the basement was pretty much unfinished, and had a coal furnace, and the water had a cistern thing, and the basement to me was always spooky. So I've been 11 years old when the house burned, so I don't really remember too much about the basement. Let's see, that's about enough.
About 30 years ago, I think we were at Oneida Lake in New York State, and it kind of coincides with this week, in the fact that this week was extremely hot in the Northeast and record temperatures were hit. I remember going with Grandma from Montoursville, and I think it was just you and me, or it might have been someone else, one of the other cousins or something. We were going up to Oneida Lake, no air conditioning. It was about a 95-degree day, the windows are down. You didn't get any relief from 95-degree heat and 73-degree dew points. So we go up to Oneida Lake, and it's putrid up there. You think you're up in New York, it's going to be cooler. Well, in the lakefront, it's just as hot as it is anywhere else in Pennsylvania. And that night, we all went to bed after we had our initial stuff that evening, dinner and everything else. We went to bed. Everybody goes to the second floor. Well, you know what happens on the second floor of a house. It's been heated all day, right? It's about 90 degrees on the second floor of this house. We all go to sleep for about 20 minutes, and next thing you know, the whole family is on the first floor kibitzing and having some cold water and whatever, because it was just extremely hot and nobody could sleep. How many remember that? I know Lynn was there. Do you remember that? that was pretty bad. So thank God for modern conveniences. Look at this, air conditioned and this beautiful place. The other one I remember would be at my grandfather Drick's farm, Grandma's farm. And, you know, I was just coming to my own as a good baseball player. And, you know, the reunions, obviously I was very young, and most of the next generation was somewhat older, and we really didn't have a lot of great events for the young kids. And we got done with our first meal, and they said, hey, now we're going to go play baseball. Play baseball? So we went out across the road and played out in the field. We set up a whole field out there, and I remember Ralph was pitching, and I did hit a double off you, I think. But we had a good time. I remember that vividly. And I think Grandpa, because Grandpa really wasn't into baseball or anything, but he came out with a tractor and watched from his tractor. So that.
I remember when I was small and I had a ton of old cousins that I was very intimidated by. And it was always Erica, Ingrid, Shirley, and I. But they always played baseball, and I was always fairly athletic too, and I loved to play with them, but I couldn't hang with them. There was no way. But it was a lot of fun anyway.